The story begins with Jane, who wakes up after their ship sinks, with everyone on board lost to the sea. The waves had carried her to a remote island in the middle of the ocean. Accompanying her on the ship had been her friend, Brad. She saw Brad injured, a sharp piece of wreckage lodged in his abdomen, and she tried everything she could to help him. While Jane was attempting to save him, Brad said, "Did you see what I saw?" But she didn't understand what he was referring to. She then went off to find water to quench his thirst. During her search, she found a leaf collecting rainwater, but it was contaminated. Then she came across a coconut, and after smashing it open, she extracted the water inside. She rushed back to Brad and poured the coconut water into his mouth, but it was no use. Despite her efforts, Brad passed away. Despair overwhelmed Jane as she realized she was alone on a small island in the vast ocean. She took the rescue pistol and moved forward. While wandering, she found belongings that seemed to belong to a family who had once lived on the island. She also discovered some soda cans and a portable cooler, along with a lighter she used to start a fire. Jane managed to gather a few tools that helped her adapt to the island's conditions for a while. When night fell, a powerful storm struck, bringing heavy rain. Jane took shelter under the trees. The next morning, she found sea fish washed up on the shore and noticed that the head of one of the fish had been eaten in a strange way. She gathered what fish she could into a small bag to preserve them as food. Jane continued to explore the island and eventually discovered graves. She realized they belonged to the family who once lived there, so she decided to bury Brad alongside them. With great effort, she dragged his body to the burial site, dug a hole, and laid him to rest. The following night, she collected some wood, used the lighter to start a fire, and grilled some of the fish she had gathered, though she only ate a little. The next morning, she went to check on Brad's grave, but was horrified to find it had been dug up, and his body had been savagely devoured. Terror gripped her heart, and Jane realized she was now in danger. Something was threatening her life. She decided to make a spear to use as a weapon to defend herself. While doing so, she saw some of her personal belongings from the ship floating in the water. She dove in to retrieve them, and during her dive, she noticed a massive underwater hole. She was puzzled by its presence but chose to ignore it and returned to the island. That night, while Jane was sitting quietly, she suddenly heard the sound of a plane flying overhead. She rushed out and fired the rescue flare into the sky, hoping the plane would see it and come to save her. Unfortunately, the plane flew away. As the flare descended, it illuminated the surface of the water, and that's when Jane saw a strange creature emerging from the sea. Terrified, she watched as a horrifying being stood upright on the water's surface. She immediately ran to hide under the trees, realizing that the creature was coming for her, to kill her. The creature approached her location and began searching. Jane held her breath and remained completely silent. She was certain now. This was the same creature that had dug up Brad's grave and devoured him. The creature searched for a while but didn't find her, then eventually returned to the sea. The next morning, Jane decided she could no longer rely on any outside help. She was determined to leave the island using the bag she had retrieved from the water. But the attempt failed. The bag couldn't support her weight, so she returned to the island once again. Upon her return, she found a hollow tree and decided to use it as a shelter to sleep in and hide. In the middle of the night, she woke up to the sound of the creature searching for her. She was paralyzed with fear, but once again, the creature couldn't find her and returned to the ocean. Jane then came up with a new idea: to set a trap for the creature in order to get a closer look. She caught a fish using the spear she had made and hung it on the tree, then hid inside the hollow trunk and waited. The creature took a long time to appear. Jane dozed off, and when she woke up, she found the fish had been eaten, but she hadn't seen the creature. Determined, Jane continued sharpening her spear. While exploring, she saw the floating body of her friend Chan in the water. Heartbroken, she decided to use his corpse as bait for the creature. She placed it where the fish had been and stayed up all night watching. Finally, the creature came and began feasting on Chan's body. Jane watched in horror as the massive, powerful, terrifying beast devoured him. It moved closer to her, and her fear intensified. Just then, she heard the sound of another plane, but she didn't dare fire another flare, fearing the creature would hear and kill her. So she stayed hidden and silent until the creature eventually left. At the break of a new day, Jane decided to build a suspended shelter, tying fabric between two tall trees to stay off the ground. When night came, the creature returned, and this time, it found her. It tore down the fabric and sent her crashing to the ground. Jane tried to run, but it struck her with a heavy blow, nearly ending her life. Just as she was about to become its next victim, a powerful storm rolled in. Thunder roared through the skies, scaring the creature. It fled back into the sea and dove into the massive underwater hole. At dawn, Jane's foot was injured, and she tried to treat her wounds. As she limped in pain, she spotted a rescue balloon drifting toward her. She rushed to it and found a young man and woman inside, friends who had also been on the sunken ship. The two, who had survived just like Jane, were overwhelmed with relief when they saw each other. Jane hugged them tightly, tears of joy streaming down her face. At last, she felt that she wasn't alone anymore. She sat with them and offered them some of the Pepsi cans she had found, then began to tell them about the strange creature that had been stalking her. She recounted how it had attacked and devoured Brad, but her friends didn't believe her story. She pleaded with them to take the rescue balloon and try to escape before the creature attacked them too. They refused, unwilling to risk going back into the sea, saying, "There's no way we're returning to the waves that nearly killed us." Through Jane's conversation, it became clear that they had all been on the same ship. When it sank, they each took to rescue balloons, but were separated in the ocean. Jane had ended up on the island alone. She told them, "Dying at sea may be a small risk, but staying here is certain death." Still, the young man remained unconvinced. He didn't believe in the existence of the creature. While they sat together, Jane began placing her belongings inside the rescue balloon, trying to push it toward the water to escape. Her friends noticed and rushed to stop her. The girl struck Jane on the head, knocking her unconscious. When Jane awoke that night, she found herself tied to a tree. The girl stood before her and said, "I don't trust you anymore after everything that's happened. I won't believe your fairy tales about some killer monster. You're just convincing yourself they're real." Then the girl walked away, leaving Jane alone with the young man. He spoke to Jane calmly, but accused her of being the one who had killed their friends. A long conversation followed, during which he explained that he wouldn't risk his life for her. His suspicions had only grown stronger due to the things they had gone through together. Jane didn't care about what he was saying. Her only concern was how to escape the island and save her life, despite the threats from the others. Meanwhile, the girl was walking along the shore, replaying Jane's words in her mind. When she saw a fish head floating in the water, she picked it up in her hand. Suddenly, the creature burst from the sea at terrifying speed. Jane and the young man heard a piercing scream. They ran toward the sound and saw the creature savagely attacking the girl. The young man grabbed a burning piece of wood and began hitting the creature in an attempt to drive it away. At that moment, Jane managed to cut the rope binding her and ran to help them. They tried with all their strength to save the girl, but the creature was far more powerful. It dragged her into the sea, and all their efforts to rescue her failed. The next morning, the young man finally believed everything Jane had told him. The two of them agreed to escape using the rescue balloon and stop waiting for help. That morning, they lit a small fire and ate their final meal on the deadly island. They packed all their belongings into the balloon and stepped into the water, ready to leave. But as they drifted across the sea, the creature suddenly emerged. It attacked them ferociously and tore the balloon apart. They tried to fend it off with their last remaining flare, but it was useless. The creature snatched Jane and dragged her deep underwater. However, Jane had a small knife hidden on her. She stabbed the creature over and over until she finally broke free. The young man dove into the water, trying to save her, but the creature spotted him and lunged, dragging him down into the deep pit beneath the sea. Jane couldn't do anything to save him. She swam back to the island and collapsed on the shore, watching what remained of the balloon wash up in the waves. Jane rushed to the fire to keep it alive, her last survival tool. She felt hopeless, realizing she had no choice left but to face the creature head-on. She gathered wood, crafted several spears, and created a circle of dry grass that would ignite quickly. Then she pulled out a notebook she had kept with her and wrote down everything she had experienced on the island, hoping that if she died, her story would somehow be known. That night, the creature returned. When it stepped into the circle of dry grass, Jane set the trap ablaze. Flames surrounded the creature. Jane rushed in and struck it with her spear, but the creature hit back, knocking her to the ground and briefly knocking her out. As she regained consciousness, she rose once more and fought it with all her might. She stabbed it repeatedly. When the creature grabbed her, trying to finish her off, she had already secured the knife in her hand, thrusting it deep into the creature's body again and again until it finally fell, lifeless. To make sure it was truly dead, she cut off its head, planning to keep it as proof of her story, if she ever made it out alive. The fire had consumed much of the island's trees. Jane was completely alone now, with no more means of escape. Her chances of survival were slim, but she held on to hope. And that is the end of the film. Don't forget to support us by hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and turning on notifications so you never miss a new video.